There we go. We're recording the lesson in case anyone's away. And we're going to start on Teams once again because we're going to take a little look at another one of those study techniques. Again, we do not want AP Chemistry. Science 9 sounds a bit better. There we go. And what we did not have last day it's not plugged in, that's why. Let's plug that in. Hey, plug in. There we are. Other plug. There is. Yeah. So one thing that we didn't have last day is, first of all, this thing here that says class notebook, that goes to nothing, okay? But it won't let me get rid of it, so we're stuck with it. So don't go to class notebook. You're gonna go down to channels and be like, oh, look, class notes. If you click on that, it takes you to a link to our in-class notes. So if we were writing something down and you didn't catch it, or if you were away and you would like to see what we wrote in the workbooks, you can go here. Let's make that bigger. Okay. Here we are. And you're like, there's nothing really there. So let's see what we get. Do you see this little bookshelf? That's going to show you everything we've got. And it looks like it's not quite loaded yet. So let's see if we can get one of these things to load. We are block 3, so you are sciencing 3. Let's see if it'll load that for us. There we are. And right now we are on the cover page, right? So you can see we have our cover page. So if you wanted to go to 1.1a, you could click on 1.1a. And then you're like, oh, I can't read it because it's halfway cut off. What do you think you could click to get rid of these menus over on the left-hand side? The little bookshelf. Okay, so you can open the bookshelf to find where things are, and you can close the bookshelf. And if I were to write something on this one, it really does not like having so many programs open at the same time. But let's say that I were to write something like, hello, Science 9. Let's see if it shows up in our class notes. Okay, so we go on to Teams. And we're going to close this. Let's just go to a different page. It might take a little while to like upload. You know how things are kind of slow sometimes. So let's go back to that page now. Look. Hello, Science 9. But like I said, it's cut off. How can you keep it from being cut off? Use the little bookshelf, and that goes away. What if you want to go to a different thing? Say you want to go to 1.1b. What will you use? The little bookshelf. You open it up and be like, I want 1.1b. Let's say we're on unit 2. Where would you go? Down here where it says unit 2. Yes? And anyway, you get the idea. How do you open and close things? You use the little bookshelf. Everybody, what do we use? We use the little bookshelf. Excellent. That's fantastic. Okay, so that's it for that. Let's close this. Close. It is a little bit clunky and slow, but you know, it's better than nothing. And we're going to go to homework just so you can see what goes up there. Okay, so read page 12 in the workbook. We sort of went over it last day, but my block 4, they didn't have a chance. So sometimes if you've already done something, you can be like, oh, I already read page 12 because we went over it in class. Homework check tomorrow. Homework is an easy 5% of your mark. I thought I had put up here what we did yesterday. I will often do that, but there should be also a here what we did today. I'm not going to type it in now because that's going to take too long. You don't want to watch me do that, but it will be there. So if you're like, what did we do today? It should be in there. I'm not always good about getting things up when I go home at night, because when I go home at night, I'm tired. Like, I work best in the morning. So I get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and I do my schoolwork, and then I come to school and I teach, and I go home and then I try and fit in a little exercise, and then I make dinner, and then it's basically bedtime, and then I repeat. So if I don't get to things after school, you might like see homework and things pop up at 5 in the morning. Hopefully, I'm going to try and get things done after school before I leave so I don't forget to do them. But if it ever happens that you couldn't find something that night, it's because I went home and just forgot to do anything. Okay? Right. Lesson videos. Here we go. So you can see we had our Welcome to Science 9. So everything we talked about yesterday is there. Not that you probably want to watch it, because there was a lot of me running around the classroom and showing you garbage cans, and I can't imagine that would be exciting to watch. But what I did want to show you today was put your phone away for better grades. Why do I bother with this? Well, A, it's kind of like, if I'm talking and you're looking at your phone, it makes me feel kind of crappy, right? Like if you were talking to me and I was like looking at my phone, and you're like, Miss Spence, could I get some help with question 7? And I'm like, that would probably not make you feel really great, right? And the same thing goes for me. Like, I'm only human. If I'm talking to you and you're just like, that's not going to make me feel very great. But that's not the real reason behind it. That's just like an additional little thing. The real reason is that I want you to succeed, and I want you to succeed very, very well. And there was a study done in the University of Texas at Austin, and the summary, your cognitive capacity, which is basically your brain's ability to function, process information, absorb and retain information, is significantly reduced when your smartphone is within reach, even if it's off, suggests new research. So let's just take a little quick look at this. They conducted experiments with nearly 800 smartphone users in an attempt to measure how well people can complete tasks when they have their smartphone nearby. They're not looking at it, it's just like on their desk. In one experiment, the researcher asked study participants to sit at a computer, take a series of tests that required concentration. The tests were geared to measure the participants' available cognitive capacity. So that's the brain's ability to hold and process data. Before beginning, participants either put their phone either on the desk face down, or in their pocket or personal bag, or in another room. All participants were instructed to turn their phones to silent. The researchers found that the participants with their phones in another room significantly outperformed those with their phones on their desk, and they also slightly outperformed those who had it in their pocket or in a bag. So it's because we are so addicted, and we don't even know how addicted we are to this technology and to looking at it and to seeing it and just, randomly flipping through it, that our brain is like kind of thinking about it all the time, even if we don't realize it. So it is a distraction. It's like when I'm cooking, I don't know if you guys cook, but when I cook, my husband will walk into the kitchen. He won't be doing anything. He won't be talking to me. He won't be asking me questions. He's not getting in my way. And I'm like, get out of the kitchen. because I got things, I'm frying, I'm chopping, I got to do this and it's time sensitive. I can't focus merely because he is in the same space, right? Because it just takes up processing space. He apparently does not have that same issue when I'm in the kitchen. He's like, that's fine. But my brain is very sensitive to people in my space. So I'm like, oh, like it distracts me a whole lot. And apparently cell phones, if you can see them, will do the same thing to your brain. So basically, yeah, either keep your smartphone in a pocket or a bag, or in another room, or in the cell hotel. Okay? So, like I said, I'm kind of happy if in a week or two, if we want to go to, let's just have it in our bag. Instead, we can try that out and see if that works. If people are able to keep it away and not, have it out, then that will be fine. Okay. So there we go. That was our study technique of the day. Have your phone away. Okay, close. And I wanted to go over page 13 of your workbook. And in fact, what you guys could do is you could all turn to page 13, and I'm just going to walk past your desks and see if you did it. Okay? So if you had your homework done, you just got 10 out of 10. All right? So homework, September 7th. And if you didn't have it done, you can show it to me later and you can be like, okay, now I've done it. So don't worry, if you didn't have it done today, it's not the end of the earth. You can still do it and show me later, okay? However, if I do get if I see a pattern, where you don't have your homework done on a regular basis, then I probably need to, start inviting you in for flex time or asking you to join I've told poor block 4, because they have me right at the end of the day. I'm like, if you don't have your homework done, you're going to get invited to the homework club at 3 o'clock. You and me get to sit here and do homework together. Okay, so if you don't have your homework done on a regular basis, you too might be invited to do homework with me just to get it done and out of the way before you leave the building. Okay, so hopefully I try not to give too much on any given day, so hopefully it's doable, which it seems this one was. Let us go to here. And what I would like to know from you, have a little chat with your neighbor about anything that you kind of thought was weird or you weren't sure about. Okay, so just let your neighbor or your neighbors know if there was anything that you thought was strange or you weren't sure about, or Okay. So, were there any that you or your neighbor thought were kind of weird or confusing? Everyone was happy with all of them? Yes. About flame. That's good. I heard phlegm the first time, and I'm like, I'm sure I did not put phlegm on the list. Flame, flame. Flame is good. Yeah. Flame can be a little bit confusing, right? Because it is certainly something that you can. Where did I put that little pencil? There it is. It is certainly something you can see, right? And you can feel it. You can be like, oh, it's hot. The question is, does it have mass? Like, could you weigh it? No. And it doesn't actually take up, I mean, it's sort of in space, but it's, because you can kind of see it, but what would you say its volume is? Like, you couldn't really define that, right? So it is not matter. Do you guys know what something like flame would be? It's not matter, it is energy. Yes. Okay, so heat and light, which is what flame is made of, heat and light, those are both forms of energy, not matter. You can get energy released when one type of matter is turning into another type of matter. So if we're burning a log and we get the flame, we get the heat and the light released as the log turns into ashes and carbon dioxide and smoke and that kind of thing. Yeah? Any other ones that were confusing? Yes? Steam. Yes. Pardon me? You put it as matter. I would agree with you. Yes. Steam. Now, what we see as steam is actually, you know how you see steam above the kettle, you know, and it's white and it kind of goes like this? That is actually tiny droplets of liquid water. Okay? So when water is boiling, it actually comes off as individual water molecules. Do you guys know what the formula for water is? Like what the chemical sort of thing is? It is H2O. So we have a water molecule which has an oxygen, and attached to it, it has two hydrogen atoms. And water's always fun because it looks a little bit like Mickey Mouse. Okay, so a water molecule is our Mickey Mouse molecule. And when we have some water and we heat it with a flame, you can see why I'm a science teacher and not an art teacher. Yes? What will happen is in here we will have water molecules, a whole bunch of them. I'm only going to draw two because I can't draw. Woo, what happened to my water? There we go. As it boils, each water molecule is going to come off individually. And you won't be able to see that because their two molecules are too small to see. So if you look right above the kettle, like right above the spout, you actually won't see steam in that little tiny area right above the spout. You'll see steam start just above that. And what's happening is that as it gets away from the kettle, it actually starts to cool down a little bit, and it stops being a gas and it recondenses into tiny water droplets. So when you see steam, those are tiny liquid water droplets. When you see a cloud, those are tiny liquid water droplets. But if you experience humidity, have you had some of those days where it's like super humid and you're like, oh my gosh, I just feel like gross and sticky and like it's just wet and yucky? But you look around and you're like, I don't see steam. That's because there's a lot of individual water molecules in the air. more than there normally would be, and they're not stuck together. So this would be water vapor or gas. And then maybe you get a tiny little clump of 2 or 3 water molecules, probably a lot more than 2 or 3, it's probably like 100. They're so small, right? And that would be a little droplet of steam. So yeah, it's definitely matter. It's made of particles. It's made of those water molecules, and the molecules are made of hydrogen and oxygen. What's those particles called? Yes, atoms. Okay. Okay, so we had steam, we had flame. Any others you would like to take a look at? Rainbow. Oh, good one. Rainbow. So now in order to get a rainbow, you definitely need to have water droplets. Yeah. But the water droplets themselves aren't actually part of the rainbow. What will happen is that the light will hit all those water droplets. And did you learn about light in grade 8? I think that's part of grade 8, isn't it? Yeah. So we get the sunlight. What colors of light are in sunlight? Tell your partner what you can remember. What different colors of light are in sunlight? So sunlight contains what colors? Roy G. Biv, yes. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Okay, so all the colors. And if you were to pass that light through do you guys know what that's called? Piece of glass, triangle shaped. You use one? That's a prism. If you pass it through a prism, it actually gets split into all the different colors. And I don't know why I'm trying to draw this when I was just doing some stuff with my other class where we have a lovely picture of it. Look, here we go. Here we have some light. This could be the sun. And when you put it through a prism, it splits it into red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Okay, and that's what happens when it hits all the different water droplets as well. And that's how you get a rainbow. But the rainbow itself, it's not the water droplets, okay? Okay, there's water drops. Again, this is why I'm not an art teacher. Okay, that's a drop, that's a water drop. Oh my God, that's sad. That's a sad little water drop. Let's try that again. Water droplets form, they do the same job as a prism. They split the light when there's a whole bunch of them all together. Okay, they split the light. So is the rainbow matter or is it not matter? It's actually not matter because it is just the light that has been split into the different colors. The water drops, those would be matter. But the light, the colors of light are energy. Does that make some kind of sense? Yeah? Okay, cool. Any others? Let's go back to Science 9. Cloud. So a cloud is very much like steam. The reason you can see it is because there are little clumps of water molecules that make up like little tiny liquid particles of water. Tiny clumps of H2O molecules. So you have tiny water droplets is what you have, is what a cloud is made of. Okay. Any others? Yes. Absolutely, yeah. Anything else? Yeah? How about when he gets back? Perfect. Yeah? Okay, cool. All right. Nobody wanted to say that happiness was matter? Okay. Even though it does matter, happiness matters, but it's not matter. Okay. All right, that's great. If you have not done it, you can check your answers against the answer key. Okay, and if you don't know how the answer key works, we have, is there anyone who didn't get an answer key? That one? Need one? That would be helpful. Here you go. There you go. Okay, and you can either look up and say, oh, 1.1a, on the front page of your answer key, it says, oh, that's on page 1. Or on the top of every page, there's a little box that tells you what it's the answer key for. Okay, so if you look in your answer key, at the top of every page, it'll say 1.1a key, 1.1b key, 1.1c key. And then you could go to your next page and you would find the next ones. I didn't put this on my projector yet. I'll do that for next day so you can take a better look at it, okay? But you can always check your answers. Do you guys know about how to use an answer key effectively? Do you look at a question and go, oh, I don't know, dang, I just don't know. No. Will you learn much that way? No. I mean, it's better than doing nothing at all, right? So if you're one of those people who's like, I hate homework, and she's going to give me a grade for homework, and if I just fill it in, you can get your 5%, which is homework marks. Yeah? It won't help you very much for when you're studying for a quiz or a test or something like that. Okay? So make sure that you do some thinking, ask your friends, ask your teacher. If you really get stuck, that's when you can check the answers. Like if you've exhausted all other ways of figuring it out, you can check the answers. And you can also at the end go through it and see what you got right or got wrong. And then you can ask questions about anything where you're like, I thought happiness should be matter. And then you discover it's not, and then we can talk about that. Is good? Okay. Would you guys like to very quickly just practice some knots? Take 5 to 10 minutes and practice some knots. Okay, so same knot as yesterday. I'll put the video up again. All right, so you can go and grab the stuff. Oh, we'll put this back here so it's all in one place.
In this video, you will learn how to tie the round turn with 2 half hitches. The round turn with 2 half hitches can be used, among other uses, to attach a load to a hook. To tie the round turn with 2 half hitches, slide the end of the rope through the mouth of the hook. Then pass it through a second time creating a round turn. Cross the working end of the rope over the standing part. Bring the end back around to the other side, passing the rope through the space between where you crossed the rope before and the round turn, creating a half hitch. Cross the end over the standing part a second time. Circle around the standing part and thread the end through the space in between the first half hitch and where you cross the standing part a second time, creating a second half hitch. Finally, tighten the knot.
See if you can do it from
In this
memory.
video, you will learn
And
how
then
to
if you
tie
can't,
the
you can
round
watch the
turn
video
with
or
two
read the
half
thing.
hitches. The round turn with two half hitches can be used, among other uses, to attach a load to a hook. To tie the round turn with two half hitches, slide the end of the rope through the mouth of the hook. Then pass it through a second time, creating a round turn. Cross the working end of the rope over the standing part. Bring the end back around to the other side, passing the rope through the space between where you crossed the rope before and the round turn, creating a half hitch. Cross the end over the standing part a second time. Circle around the standing part and thread the end through the space in between the first half hitch and where you cross the standing part a second time, creating a second half hitch. Finally, tighten the knot. In this video, you will learn how to tie the round turn with two half hitches. The round turn with two half hitches can be used, among other uses, to attach a load to a hook. To tie the round turn with two half hitches, slide the end of the rope through the mouth of the hook. Then pass it through a second time, creating a round turn. Cross the working end of the rope over the standing part. Bring the end back around to the other side, passing the rope through the space between where you crossed the rope before and the round turn, creating a half hitch. Cross the end over the standing part a second time. Circle around the standing part and thread the end through the space in between the first half hitch and where you cross the standing part a second time, creating a second half hitch. Finally, tighten the knot.
You can tie it a few more times.
In this video, you will learn how to tie the round turn with two half hitches. The round turn with two half hitches can be used, among other uses, to attach a load to a hook. To tie the round turn with two half hitches, slide the end of the rope through the mouth of the hook. Then pass it through a second time, creating a round turn. Cross the working end of the rope over the standing part. Bring the end back around to the other side, passing the rope through the space between where you crossed the rope before and the round turn, creating a half hitch. Cross the end over the standing part a second time. Circle around the standing part and thread the end through the space in between the first half hitch and where you cross the standing part a second time, creating a second half hitch.
1.2a, but yeah, we'll be doing that. Either you'll be doing it for homework, or if we have time, we'll do it in class. Yeah, I think we'll have time, so you won't have to do it.
In this video, you will learn how to tie the round turn with two half hitches. The round turn with 2 half hitches can be used, among other uses, to attach a load to a hook. To tie the round turn with 2 half hitches, slide the end of the rope through the mouth of the hook. Then pass it through a second
by the
time,
way,
creating a round turn.
if any of you feel like Science 9 is at any point, if you get
Cross the
bored, if
working
you're
end
not
of the
feeling
rope
challenged
over the
enough,
standing part.
I used to teach 9 Enriched
Bring the
back when
end
that was a
back
course,
around to the other
and
side,
so I have the
passing the
materials
rope
for that.
through the space between where you
And so if
cross the
you're
rope
like, I
before
just like
and the round
science
turn,
and I like to do a little
creating
bit
a
extra
half
for me,
hitch. Cross the end over the standing part a second time.
and maybe
Circle around the standing part
questions you can ask
and
me
thread
for
the end
what
through the
you want
space
to do.
in between the first half hitch
Totally
and
optional.
where you cross the
All
standing
right.
part a second
If
time,
you're wanting to get an
creating a
extending,
second half hitch.
then this might be something that could help you get there.
Finally,
Yes?
tighten the
Because
knot.
I do have like a little section on quizzes and tests that's called the Enrich section.
In this
It's not
video,
for marks
you will
if you
learn
don't
how to
want to
tie
do it, but
the
if you do
round
want to
turn
do
with
it,
2 half hitches.
I take those marks in and I put them in at the end
The
of the
round turn
term,
with
and
2
so it can
half
bring your
hitches
grade
can be used,
up if you
among
want
other
to.
uses,
Okay?
to attach
Totally
a load to a
optional.
hook.
Let me know if
To
at
tie
any
the
point
round turn with
if
2
you
half
want it.
hitches, slide the
Okay?
end of the
I've
rope
got those.
through the mouth of the hook. Then pass it through a second time, creating a round turn. Cross the working end of the rope over the standing part. Bring the end back around to the other side, passing the rope through the space between where you crossed the rope before and the round turn, creating a half hitch. Cross the end over the standing part a second time. Circle around the standing part and thread the end through the space in between the first half hitch and where you cross the standing part a second time, creating a second half hitch. Finally, tighten the knot. In this video, you will learn how to tie the round turn with 2 half hitches. The round turn with 2 half hitches can be used, among other uses, to attach a load to a hook. To tie the round turn with 2 half hitches, slide the end of the rope through the mouth of the hook. Then pass it through a second time, creating a round turn. Cross the working end of the rope over the standing part.
Okay, if you've not yet cleaned up
Bring
your
the end
string,
back around to
time
the
to
other
do that
side,
now.
passing the rope through the space between where you crossed the rope before and the round turn, creating a half hitch.
And we're
Cross
going to
the
go to
end over the standing
1.2a,
part a
which is
second
on
time.
page 20.
Circle around the standing part and thread the end through the
Page
space in
20.
between the first half hitch and where you cross the standing part a second time, creating a second half hitch. Finally, tighten the knot. In this video, you will learn how to tie the round turn with 2 half hitches. The round turn with 2 half hitches can be used, among other uses, to attach a load to a hook. To tie the round turn with 2 half hitches, slide the end of the rope through the mouth of the hook.
So a few people got the enriched stuff today. If
Then pass
you
it through a
decide at some
second
point in the
time,
future that you would like
creating
it,
a
just
round
ask. It's
turn.
all good. I'll give it to you then. And we'll just wait a moment
Cross
for
the
everyone to
working
get
end of the
their
rope over the
stuff
standing
away,
part.
and then we'll be on page 20.
Bring the end back around to the other side, passing the rope through the space between where you crossed the rope before and the round turn, creating a half hitch. Cross the end over the standing part a second time. Circle around the standing part and thread the end through the space in between the first half hitch and where you cross the standing part a second time, creating a second half hitch. Finally, tighten the knot. In this video, you will learn how to tie the round turn with 2 half hitches. The round turn with 2 half hitches can be used, among other uses, to attach a load to a hook. To tie the round turn with 2 half hitches, slide
you
the
don't have
end
to
of
do
the
all of
rope
it. You
through
can
the
just do
mouth
some
of the
of it,
hook.
right? And it never counts against you. So
Then
if you
pass it
do
through a second time,
if you do that
creating
enriched
a
stuff
round
and
turn.
say on that section of the test you get that little extra section and you get 50%, doesn't matter.
Cross
It
the
still
working
means
end
you're
of the
getting
rope
whatever you got on your
over the
regular test
standing part.
plus extra, right? So it's never like
Bring
it's
the
never
end
going to hurt your
back
grade.
around to the other side, passing the rope
Oh, you can
through
totally
the
do it with
space
your
between where you
parents.
cross the
If
rope
you're
before
interested, you can come
and
in
the
during
round
flex
turn,
if you want,
creating
like
a
whatever,
half hitch.
you know, however
Cross
your
the
learning
end
works
over
best
the
for
standing
you.
part a second time.
Yeah, and if I have a little bit of extra time, you
Circle
know,
around
during a
the
lesson, if
standing
we're doing
part
some homework and you want some
and
help on
thread
that
the end
instead,
through the
we
space
can definitely
in
do that.
between the first
Okay?
half hitch
So it's just
and where
meant
you
because,
cross
you
the
know,
standing part a second
everybody
time,
has different strengths
creating
and
a second
weaknesses in their
half
life, and some
hitch.
people are like, science! I love the science. I want science
Finally,
all day long.
tighten
I
the
was
knot.
so like that. Oh my gosh. There's a reason I'm a science teacher. So those people might want a little
In this
extra.
video,
Some people are
you
like,
will learn how
science.
to
I
tie
must take
the
science
round
because
turn
I'm
with 2
required
half
to do so
hitches.
to graduate.
The
Great.
round
And
turn
maybe
with
you
2
don't
half
want it, and that's
hitches can be
perfectly fine.
used,
Okay?
among other
So
uses,
however it
to
works best
attach a
for you
load to
is
a hook.
good.
To tie the round turn with 2 half hitches, slide the end of the rope through the mouth of the hook.
Yeah, just under here.
Then pass it through a second time, creating a round turn. Cross the working end of the rope over the
Pretty
standing
soon we're
part.
going to be measuring things. And when we measure them,
Bring the
we're going
end
to need to
back
write
around to the
down
other
what we
side,
measure. So we
passing the
need
rope
to know
through the
all
space
the right
between where you cross the
symbols
rope before
and
and the
all the
round
right
turn,
words for
creating
all the
a half
things.
hitch. Cross the end over the
So
standing
here
part a
are
second time.
some quantities
Circle around the standing part
that you can
and
measure.
thread the end through the space
So
in
we
between
have
the first half hitch
volume,
and
which
where
we
you
talked
cross
about
the
last
standing
day.
part
What
a
is volume
second
again?
time, creating a second half
The amount of
hitch.
space something takes up. So have a little
Finally,
think about what you may have
tighten
done
the
in the
knot.
past, maybe in your kitchen or in your Science 8 classroom. Can you think of something you
In
might
this video,
use,
you will
a
learn how
tool
to
you might
tie
use
the
to
round
measure
turn with 2
volume?
half hitches.
Have a little chat with your neighbor, see if you can think
The
of
round
something. What
turn with
might
2
you
half
use to
hitches
measure
can be used,
volume?
among other uses, to attach a load to a hook. To tie the round turn with 2 half hitches, slide the end of the rope through the mouth of the hook. Then pass it through a second time, creating a round turn. Cross the working end of the rope over the
Yeah,
standing
you're lucky
part.
back there. You got a little cheat sheet down there.
Bring
No,
the
no,
end
it's
back
just on
around to the other
on the
side,
shelves.
passing the rope through the space between where you crossed the rope before and the round
Okay,
turn,
can I get some ideas?
creating
What might
a
we use
half
to measure
hitch.
volume? Yes.
Cross the end over the standing
Me,
part a
mate, you're
second
all
time.
very specific right off the bat. Very nice. We
Circle
could
around the
use
standing part and thread
the
the end
measuring
through the
tool.
space in between the first half hitch
Could
and where you
be
cross the standing part a second time,
a
creating a second
graduated
half hitch.
cylinder.
Finally, tighten the knot.
You guys use one of those in grade 8? Yeah. Okay, and this is
In
on
this video,
page
you will learn how to
20.
tie the round
Yeah, if I'm
turn with 2
ever
half
like
hitches.
not giving you the page, or if I
The
went by
round
it too
turn with
quickly,
2 half
or
hitches can be used, among other uses, to attach a load to a hook. To tie the round turn with 2 half hitches, slide the end of the rope through the mouth of the hook. Then pass it through a second time, creating a round turn.
bigger volumes. This is a 100 milliliter, and then the back one we have one.
Cross the
for
working
making
end of
big
the rope
quantities of
over the
solutions.
standing
We have a
part.
1 liter. I don't think we have a 2 liter. We have 500 milliliter, and they're quite
Bring
big.
the end back around to
Those
the
are
other
a
side,
graduated cylinder.
passing the rope
Now,
through the space between where you crossed the rope
if you
before
had to come
and
up
the
with a
round turn,
symbol
creating
to
a half
represent
hitch.
volume,
Cross
a
the end
single
over
letter,
the standing
what would
part
you
a second
probably
time,
choose? V.
Circle around the
Do you think we're
standing
going to use a
part
capital V or a
and
small
thread
V?
the end through the space
We're going to use a
in
capital
between
V.
the first half hitch and where you cross the standing part a second time, creating a
My voice
second
is starting
half
to go, and I got to
hitch.
do this again next block. What am I going to do? Ah!
Finally, tighten the knot.
Did anyone have any other tools that they might have thought of for measuring volume?
In this video, you will learn how to tie the round turn with 2 half hitches.
Maybe something you have
The
in your
round
kitchen.
turn with 2 half hitches can be used,
Measuring cups.
among other uses,
Yeah?
to attach a
Measuring
load
cups
to a
will
hook.
definitely
To tie
measure
the round
volume.
turn with 2 half
What if you
hitches,
had something that
slide
was
the end of the
cubic,
rope through the
that
mouth
was
of the
like the
hook.
shape of a box? What could
Then
you
pass
use?
it through a second time, creating a round turn.
Well, sorry? A scale is going to be for another type
Cross
of
the
thing.
working end of the
Okay.
rope
Good
over the
guess,
standing
yes.
part.
You could actually use a ruler, but you wouldn't have
Bring
to
the
make
end
just one
back
measurement.
around to the other side, passing the rope through the
This,
space between where you crossed the rope before and the
and I have
round
my
turn,
ruler.
creating a half hitch.
Can I just
Cross
measure
the
it and be
end
like,
over the
volume,
standing part
done?
a second time.
What else would I have to
Circle
measure?
around the standing part and
The
thread the
side
end
and
through
the
the space in between the
height,
first half
okay?
hitch
Because volume is a
and where you cross the
three-dimensional
standing part a second time,
measurement.
creating a second
Now,
half
these
hitch.
guys will do all the three-dimensionality for you. If you use a
Finally,
ruler, you got to make 1,
tighten the
2,
knot.
3 measurements. Okay, distance. What do you think our
In
symbol
this
for
video,
distance will
you will
be?
learn how to tie the round
It'll be
turn
a
with 2
D,
half hitches.
and in this case, it's actually a lowercase d.
The round turn with 2 half hitches can be used, among other uses, to attach a load to a hook. To tie the round turn with 2 half hitches, slide the end of the rope through the mouth of the hook.
Now, there's other thing.
Then pass it through a second time.
This is going to be how long an
creating a
object
round
is,
turn.
or how far an object travels, and what could we use as our
Cross the
measuring
working
tool
end of
for
the rope
distance?
over the standing part. Bring the end
You could use
back
a
around
measuring
to the
tape.
other side,
Yeah?
passing the rope through the space between where you crossed the rope before and the round turn, creating a half
You could
hitch.
use a ruler.
Cross the end
Okay.
over the standing part a second time.
There's all different kinds of ways. They have like
Circle
little,
around the standing part
I don't know, they got those
and
things that
thread the
basically
end
like a little
through the
wheel,
space
and
in
you roll
between
it
the first
along and
half
you see how
hitch
many times it takes.
and where you cross the standing part a second time, creating a second half hitch.
But yeah.
Finally, tighten the knot.
Temperature. What is temperature measuring?
In this video, you will learn how to tie the round turn
Volume
with
is
2
measuring
half
how
hitches.
much space something takes up. Distance
The
is
round
measuring
turn with
how
2 half hitches
long something
can
is
be
or how
used,
far it
among
is.
other uses,
What is
to
temperature
attach a load
measuring?
to a hook.
Yes.
To tie the round turn with 2
How
half
hot or
hitches,
cold something
slide
is.
the end of the rope through the mouth of the hook.
And its symbol, guess what, is a
Then pass it
T.
through a second
In
time,
this case, it is a
creating a round turn.
capital T.
Cross the working end of the rope over the standing part.
Mass.
Bring the end
If you're
back around to
measuring
the other
mass,
side,
try
passing the
and think
rope
of something you
through
could
the space
use
between
to
where you
measure
crossed
mass.
the rope
What might be?
before
Oh,
and the
sorry, I
round
forgot.
turn,
The measuring tool for temperature
creating
would be
a half hitch.
thermometer.
Cross the
Yes.
end over the standing part a second time. Circle around the standing part and thread the end through the space
Mass.
in between the first half hitch
We could use a
and
scale.
where you
Yes.
cross the standing part a second time, creating a second
Which
half
is also
hitch.
known as a
Finally,
balance.
tighten the knot.
Okay, we tend to use the word balance in science, but it's the same thing. Okay.
In this video, you will learn how to tie
guesses
the
as to the
round
symbol?
turn with 2 half hitches.
M. Yes. And it's a lowercase m.
The round turn with 2 half hitches can be used,
And if you're like,
among
why
other
does it
uses,
matter
to attach a
if
load
it's
to a hook.
uppercase or lowercase?
To tie the round turn with 2
we will
half
find out
hitches,
very, very
slide
soon.
the end of the rope through the mouth of
Because
the
we
hook.
have the next one, which isn't temperature,
Then
but it
pass it through a
is
second time,
time.
creating a
You want to guess
round
what the
turn.
symbol is? Not a capital T this time, it's a lowercase
Cross
t.
the
That way we
working end of
know
the
that we
rope
either
over the
have
standing part.
capital T for
Bring the
temperature
end back around
and
to the other side,
lowercase t for
passing the rope
time.
through the space between where you crossed the rope before and the round turn, creating a half hitch. Cross the end
And
over the
what might we
standing
use
part a
to measure
second time.
time?
Circle
A
around the
watch,
standing part and thread
stopwatch.
the end through the space in between the first half hitch and where you cross the standing part a second time, creating a second half hitch.
You could use clock, absolutely.
Finally,
Can you guys read these
tighten
clocks?
the knot.
The analog clocks? Most of you? Good.
In this
If you
video,
can't,
you
try
will
it every
learn how
once
to
in a while.
tie
Just be like,
the round turn
I wonder
with
if I
two
can
half
figure out what
hitches.
time it is. You know, test
The
yourself
round
every
turn
once
with
in a
two
while.
half hitches can be used, among other
That clock is
uses,
2 minutes
to
fast,
attach a load to
by
a
the way.
hook.
I got to fix it
To tie the
today
round
after
turn
school.
with two half hitches,
I meant to do it this morning, but I
slide
forgot,
the end
and
of
then
the
I ran out
rope
of time,
through
and I
the mouth of the
didn't have
hook.
time at lunch. Okay, force. What's its
Then
symbol?
pass it through a second time,
F.
creating
And this
a
one is
round
a
turn.
capital F.
Cross the working end of the rope over the standing part. Bring the end back around to the other side, passing the rope through the space between where you crossed the rope
And if you're
before
not
and
sure
the
what a
round turn,
force is,
creating a
a
half
force
hitch.
is either a
Cross
push
the end
or
over
a
the standing part a second time.
pull. So forces are things
Circle
that
around
can
the
make
standing
other
part
things
and
move.
thread the end
Yes?
through the space
So if I
in
push on
between the
this,
first half hitch
I am the
and where you
force that
cross
is
the
making
standing
it
part a second time,
move. If I
creating a
lift
second
up,
half
where did
hitch.
that go? This is good. If I lift this up,
Finally, tighten
it
the knot.
moves. Why does it move? It moves because of gravity, and
In
gravity
this video,
is a
you will learn how to tie
force.
the round
So you
turn
can
with
have
two half
force
hitches.
where there's actual touching involved, and you can have
The
force
round turn with two half
where
hitches can be used, among other
the
uses,
earth
to attach a
exerts that
load to
force,
a
but
hook.
doesn't actually have to
To
touch
tie
it.
the round
There's a
turn with two half
gravitational
hitches,
field
slide the end
all
of
the
the
way
rope
around
through the
any
mouth of the
body
hook.
that has mass, any sort of object that has mass.
Then pass
So
it through a second time,
technically, I
creating a
have
round
gravity
turn.
because I have mass, and I attract other things with mass.
Cross the
But
working
gravity
end of
is
the
a
rope
really,
over the
really
standing
weak
part.
force. So if you have my mass,
Bring the
and you
end
have the
back
mass
around to
of
the other
the
side,
eraser,
passing the
the
rope
eraser
through
does
the
not
space between
come
where you crossed the rope
clinging
before
towards me
and the
because the
round turn,
attractive force is so
creating a
weak.
half
You need
hitch.
something really
Cross
big
the
and
end over
massive
the
like the
standing part
Earth,
a second
and
time,
the Earth is big enough that its
circle
force
around the standing
pulls
part,
everything
and
else with
thread
mass
the end
towards it.
through the space
Okay?
in between the first half hitch
So
and
we've
where
done
you
number
cross
one.
the standing part a
Does it
second
matter if we
time,
use a
creating
capital
a
or
second
lowercase
half hitch.
for the quantity symbols? Yes.
Finally,
Keep trying to use that
tighten
pen
the knot.
because it doesn't work. Yes.
In this video,
Now, this
you
part
will
is
learn how to
tricky.
tie
My
the
grade
round
11s still
turn
get
with
messed up
two
with it
half
sometimes.
hitches.
There are quantities.
The round
Time
turn
is a
with two
quantity.
half hitches can be
And we
used,
measure
among other
it
uses, to
in
attach a load to a
certain
hook. To tie the
units.
round turn with two half hitches,
And then
slide
have
the
a
end of
chat
the
amongst
rope
yourselves
through
and
the
think,
mouth of the hook.
what do I measure time in?
Then pass
That
it through a
took
second time,
30
creating a round turn.
seconds. Seconds is the unit. Time is the quantity. You could also
Cross the
say that
working end
took
of the
30
rope over the standing
minutes.
part.
Minutes is another unit of time. Okay?
Bring the end
So the
back
quantity
around
is
to the
time,
other
the
side,
unit is the
passing the
whatever you're
rope
measuring it
through
in.
the space between where
Okay?
you crossed the rope before and the
So
round turn,
seconds is the
creating
unit
a half
for
hitch. Cross the end over the standing part a second
quantity
time,
is
circle
time.
around the standing part, and thread the end through the space
And what was the
in between
abbreviation
the
for
first
time?
half hitch and where you
Lowercase
cross the
t.
standing part a second time, creating a second
What would we
half
be
hitch.
measuring if we're using meters? We'd be
Finally,
measuring distance, so the
tighten the
quantity
knot.
is the distance, and this right here is the
In this
unit.
video, you will learn how
And
to tie
distance
the round
is
turn with two half hitches.
small d.
The
Now
round
here's
turn
one you
with two
may
half
not have heard of. I don't
hitches
know
can
if
be
you do that in
used,
grade 8 or
among
grade
other
7 or
uses,
anything like that.
to attach a load to a hook.
Newtons.
To tie the round turn with two
Close.
half hitches,
It's
slide
force.
the end of the rope through the mouth of the
Have you
hook.
guys heard of Sir Isaac Newton?
then
You know
pass
what
it
he's,
through a
you know what
second
he's
time,
famous for a couple of
creating
things.
a
Does anyone
round
know one of the
turn.
things? He's famous for gravity, the force of gravity, and the unit for
Cross the
force is
working end of the
the
rope over the
Newton
standing
after
part.
Sir Isaac Newton, because he was very much associated with that.
Bring the
So we
end
have
back around to
capital
the other side,
F.
passing the rope through the space between where you
How
crossed the
about
rope before
liters?
and the round turn, creating
Volume,
a
yeah.
half hitch. Cross the end over the standing part a second time.
And the symbol for volume?
Circle around the standing
Capital
part
B, yep.
and thread the end through the space in
What
between
about
the first half
grams?
hitch
What are we measuring?
and where you cross
Mass.
the standing part a second time,
And what's the symbol
creating
for
a
mass?
second half hitch.
Lowercase m.
Finally, tighten the knot.
And temperature for degrees Celsius?
In this video, you will learn how to tie the round turn with 2 half hitches.
Capital T.
The round turn with 2 half hitches can be used, among
Now,
other
it's really
uses,
nice that we have
to
little
attach a
shortcuts
load
to write
to a
down
hook.
time,
To
little
tie
d,
the round turn with 2
distance,
half
little d,
hitches,
mass,
slide
little
the
m.
end of the rope through the
But I don't
mouth
want
of
to
the
have to write
hook.
out seconds.
Then pass it through a second time,
Millimeters. Oh, good
creating
gracious,
a
that's
round
long.
turn.
So scientists are by nature lazy people. We like to come up with abbreviations for
Cross the
something.
working end
How
of
do
the
you think
rope
we
over
abbreviate
the
seconds?
standing part.
Yes, absolutely, yes. How do we abbreviate seconds?
Bring the end back around to the other side,
S, and that's going to be
passing the
a
rope through the space between where you
lowercase.
crossed the rope before and the round turn, creating a half hitch. Cross the end over the standing part a
How
second
might
time,
we abbreviate
circle around the
liters?
standing part,
L, and
and
it's
thread the
a
end through the
capital.
space in between the first half hitch and where you cross the standing part a second time, creating a second half hitch.
Grams.
Finally,
G,
tighten
and
the
it's a
knot.
lowercase, yes. You've probably seen that on like cereal boxes or something like that, right?
In this
Grams.
video, you will learn how to tie the round turn with 2 half hitches.
Newtons, yes.
The round turn with 2 half hitches
We
can
do
be
capitals
used,
and
among other
lowercase
uses,
because different
to
ones
attach a
stand for
load to
different
a
things.
hook.
So
To
just like
tie
we
the
had
round
capital
turn with
T
2
for
half
temperature
hitches,
and lowercase t for
slide the
time.
end of the rope through the mouth of the hook,
Capital
then
S
pass it through a second time,
stands
creating a
for
round turn.
entropy, which is not a concept you need to know unless you're taking AP chemistry, which you're not right now.
Cross
Maybe
the
you will in
working
the
end
future.
of the rope
Okay,
over
but
the standing
each
part.
of them have different meanings. There are a few where we end up using them a lot, like
Bring the end
milli.
back around to the
You've
other
got a
side,
millimeter.
passing
Milli
the
is
rope
lowercase m
through the
and
space
meter is
between where you
lowercase
crossed the
m
rope
and
before
mass is
and the round turn,
lowercase m.
creating a
M
half
gets
hitch.
used a lot.
Cross
We
the
actually
end
have
over the standing
we
part a
actually end up
second
using
time,
Greek letter M and
circle
capital
around the standing
M and
part,
M with little
and
squigglies
thread
on it
the
because
end
there's so
through the
many
space
things that
in
start with the
between the
letter M.
first
It's
half
really a little
hitch
bit irritating. But yeah,
and where you
mostly we
cross
try
the
and keep them
standing part
separate,
a second
but we
time,
don't always manage
creating
to.
a second half hitch.
Newtons, because it's after a man's name, it would be
Finally, tighten the knot.
capital N. Meters,
In this
lowercase m.
video, you will learn how to tie the round turn with 2 half hitches.
Newton is capital.
The round turn with 2 half hitches
And
can be
degrees
used,
Celsius.
among other uses, to attach a
A
load to a
little
hook. To tie the round turn with 2 half
circle,
hitches, slide
and then
the end
a
of the rope through the
C.
mouth of the hook,
Okay, so that's the degree,
then pass it through a second time, creating a round turn.
and that is Celsius, and that's a capital.
Cross the working end of the
Again,
rope
that's somebody's
over the
name. I think he
standing
was
part.
Swedish, maybe?
Bring the
Maybe
end
Swedish, maybe
back around to
Danish,
the
I don't
other
know.
side,
Does it matter if
passing
you
the
use a
rope
capital or
through the
lowercase
space
level
between where you crossed the
for
rope
the unit
before
abbreviation?
and the round turn, creating
Yes.
a half hitch. Cross the end over the standing part a second time. Circle around the standing part
Okay.
and thread the end
So
through the space
there will be a quiz
in
next
between the first half hitch
Tuesday
and where you cross the standing part a second time,
on
creating a second half hitch.
this table here.
Finally, tighten the knot.
So you can take the regular version of the quiz, which will look pretty
In
much
this
like
video,
this. It's just
you will
different
learn
things
how
will
to
be
tie
filled in.
the round
You'll get
turn with 2
one
half
thing
hitches.
per line. So you might get the quantity symbol,
The
You
round
might
turn
get the
with two half
unit,
hitches can be
you might
used,
get the
among other
quantity,
uses,
you
to
might get the
attach a
unit
load to a
abbreviation,
hook.
one
To
per
tie the
line.
round turn with two half
If
hitches,
you choose to do
slide
the
the end of the
enriched
rope
version
through
of
the
the
mouth of the
quiz,
hook.
you just get a blank table and you need to fill it in all
Then
on
pass it
your
through a
own.
second time, creating
Yes?
a round
Your
turn.
choice what you do. If you try the enriched one and you're like, oh, my brain just froze, please give me the other one,
Cross
that's
the
totally
working
fine.
end of the
Right?
rope
Yes.
over the standing
Yeah.
part.
So, in order
Bring
to
the end back around to
get
the
you
other
prepared
side,
for that,
passing the rope
for
through the
homework
space
tonight,
between where
you're
you
going to
crossed the
do
rope
page
before and the round
21,
turn, creating
okay,
a half hitch. Cross the end over the standing part a second time.
and 22.
Circle around the standing part and thread the end through the space
Okay,
in between the first half hitch
21,
and where you cross the standing part a second time, creating a second
and
half hitch.
22.
Finally,
Yes, I think that's
tighten
right.
the knot.
Is that right? It's a quiz. Now,
In
another
this
thing I need
video,
to tell you
you will
about
learn how to
quiz.
tie the round turn with two half hitches. The round turn with two
Quizzes
half
are
hitches can
re-quizzable.
be used,
There are
among
one or
other
two
uses,
quizzes that you can't
to
re-quiz
attach
because
a
it's
load
hard
to
to
a
come up
hook.
with different
To
questions.
tie the round
But
turn with
most
two
of
half
the quizzes
hitches,
you can take
slide the end
again
of the rope
if you
through
want
the
to
mouth of the hook.
improve your mark. Why is that? Because
Then pass it
quizzes
through a
are a
second time,
way of learning.
creating a
They're
round
not there to be like, oh, what do you know today? They're there to be like, oh, let's find out what
Cross
I
the
know
working end of
today.
the rope over the
And
standing
I can
part.
say, oh, I didn't know this today. I can know that though for
Bring the
tomorrow.
end back around to the
Yes?
other side,
When it
passing the
comes to a
rope through the
test, you
space
won't do a
between where
test
you
until
crossed
we've
the
done a
rope
whole
before
bunch of
and the
quizzes.
round turn,
So you'll be really prepared
creating
for it on
a
a
half
test.
hitch.
There are no
Cross the end
retests.
over the standing part
Okay?
a second
No
time,
retests. If you do very badly,
circle
if
around
you're
the
like, oh my
standing
gosh, I
part,
just had a horrible
and
day,
thread the
and
end
my
through the
brain
space
just went,
in between the first
you
half
can come in and
hitch
do corrections with
and
me.
where you cross the
Okay, so
standing
a
part a
test,
second
there's no
time,
retest because that's a
creating a
huge amount of
second
work,
half hitch.
coming up with a new version and keeping track of who's done what.
Finally,
But if
tighten
you're
the
really,
knot.
really unhappy with your grade on a test, if it falls below a certain percentage, you can come in
In
and
this video, you will learn how
do
to
corrections
tie
with
the
me and
round
keep going
turn
with
with
it.
two half
Yes?
hitches. The round turn with two half
Um,
hitches can be used,
Because we're on a
among other
proficiency
uses,
scale,
to attach a
what
load
it's
to a
going to
hook.
do is it could
To
bring
tie the round
someone,
turn with
like,
two
if,
half
I mean, if
hitches,
you're proficient, you're
slide
proficient.
the end of
Like,
the rope
proficient is a
through the
big
mouth of the
bucket.
hook.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you can be proficient
Then
and
pass it through a
mostly
second time,
understand things. You can be
creating a
proficient
round
and
turn.
understand everything and just not have done any of the extra stuff. So proficient is a very
Cross the
big
working
bucket.
end of the rope
But what it's
over
going
the
to do is
standing
it might
part.
get someone from an emerging to a developing,
Bring the
or
end
from a
back
developing
around to
to
the other
a
side,
proficient,
passing the rope
right? I'm
through
not
the
looking
space
for
between
someone
where
to
you
go from
crossed the rope
proficient to
before
extending
and the
by doing
round turn,
corrections. Do you know what I mean?
creating a half
But that's the
hitch.
kind of thing we're looking
Cross
at.
the end
Yeah?
over the standing part a
So,
second time,
I guess that's the other thing I should say
circle
about
around the
how I
standing
mark.
part, and
I'm
thread the
old,
end through the space
right? I told
in
you guys I've
between the
been
first
teaching for
half
twice as
hitch
long as you've been alive.
and where you
Yeah?
cross the standing
So
part
this
a
whole
second
business
time,
with proficient
creating
and
a second
emerging,
half
my
hitch.
brain doesn't do it. My brain, and I'm a science brain, my
Finally,
brain does numbers.
tighten the knot.
So when you get a test, it will be out of a number, but that's okay.
In this
On
video,
your
you will
report
learn how to
card, it's
tie
just gonna
the
say
round turn with two half
proficient
hitches.
or whatever. And
The
so I
round
take
turn with two
your
half hitches
marks that
can
my
be
brain
used,
can deal
among
with,
other uses,
because it
to
likes
attach a
numbers,
load to a hook.
and then
To
I
tie
take a
the
look
round
at it, and I
turn with
take a
two
look at
half
what you've done
hitches,
in class, and I
slide
take a
the
look
end
at
of the
notes
rope
you've
through the mouth of the
completed, and
hook.
ask good questions and things like that. I kind of take that all into
Then
account
pass
and
it
do
through a
holistic,
second time, creating a round turn.
proficiency for that. Does that make sense? Right? So if you're feeling like you're like,
Cross the
oh, I'm not
working
doing
end
as
of the
well
rope
as I'd like
over the
to,
standing part.
come in for flex time, whatever. Yeah.
Bring the end
I think
back
that's it.
around to
Homework
the
is
other
page
side,
21, 22.
passing the rope through the space between where you crossed the rope before and the round turn, creating a half hitch. Cross the end over the standing part a second time,